Hello, Canada. Hello, United States of America. Greetings to every single one of you all over the planet. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show. My name, of course, is Kevin J. Johnston. And since I'm egocentric, that is the name of the show. But you already all know that. We run this show every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Toronto time, 7 p.m. Calgary time, 6 p.m. Vancouver time. Pick it, doesn't make a difference. It's always going to be on Tuesdays. We simply do not miss a Tuesday. I got to point something out to everybody here. Facebook is banning us again. All right. So first, let's do this. I'm going to put this in the chat for everybody right this second. And all of you need to, I suppose, look at my other Facebook pages, because my personal one, Mr. Kevin J. Johnston, has been banned for 48 hours. Have a look at these, everyone. Kaboom. You can always find me here. What happened? Well, I'm sure all of us know Lizzo, right? Lizzo is the economy-sized black lady. Now, let's just call her what she is, obese. She dresses up scantily clad with nothing on, essentially, and pantyhose, and plays a flute on stage. And because of all these ridiculous body positivity movements and the far left and the LGBTQ nonsense out there, everyone says she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, she's hot, and so on. Well, Jordan Peterson, he said, no, she's not. I agree. She's not. Let's be honest, guys and girls. Being 400 pounds is not hot. It's not sexy. It's not at all. And I know that many of you out there remember me when I was 270 pounds. And that was what? God awful was, I think, what some of you said. And I'm glad that you did, because I wasn't healthy. Well, Lizzo put a photograph out where she's buck naked, totally naked, in a pose, kind of standing like a dog, looking at the camera with a fake sexy look on her face, because she's not sexy. And in there, you can see 750 rolls that go all the way down. And I simply made the comment that this is not right. You're teaching the public through music and fame and whatever that being this heavy is good for you. It's not good for you. It's dangerous for you. Hypertension, heart attacks, lifespan of 40 or less. So Facebook decides to tell me that I'm being cruel because I'm recommending to everyone out there that you all do something about being obese, because it ain't healthy. I mean, if you smoke, I'd say quit smoking, Ed Stefanos. If you drink excessively, I'd say maybe curb that a bit. If you put 3-foot lines of cocaine up your nose, I would recommend you stop that too, because that's definitely heart attack city. And for fentanyl, don't even be in the same room with it. But, you're not going to listen to me. I'm just a middle-aged guy with gray hair. Regardless, Facebook says I was picking on Lizzo, so they gave me a 48-hour ban, which is why you're not going to find the show on Mr. Kevin J. Johnston on Facebook, nor official Kevin J. Johnston. So here. I'll put these back up for everybody to see. You can hit print screen on your keyboard right now. Always watch the show on Rumble, please. And we are watching the Rumble chat room, everybody. D Live right there is a very good backup. And there's the other Facebook pages that I'm not going to post anything on at all except for this show, so that way we don't get banned. But speaking of fatness, some of you have pointed out correctly that I have a little bit too much jowl for a guy who's not quite 52 years old. You're correct. You're absolutely correct. I do. So I told Ed that not only am I back in the gym after that near-death experience I had last month, but I'm also dealing with a nutritionalist who has put me on a diet. It's a pretty crazy one. No bread and 900 calories a day for 30 days. My weigh-in 2.5 days ago was 200 pounds. This afternoon was 216 pounds. We got to try to get this carcass down to 178 pounds. So what does Ed do? When I tell him that I had sardines, he sends me this photograph. I get sardines and salad for dinner. He gets this. He sends this to me. Ed, any particular reason why you thought you'd be so callous this evening? Microphone. We're doing this again. Ed, microphone. Turn it on. Ed.
Before I emailed it to you before you told me that you're on a calorie restricted diet.
That's a lie. Okay, so everyone, what I'm doing is I'm making it public. So if I screw up my dietary plans and my workout plans over the next 30 days, all of you are entirely allowed to mock me publicly, and I'm going to let you do it. So I've got this slide. If you go to kevinjjohnston.ca in the blog section, Kevin J. Johnston being less fat. I'm going to put the link up for you right now. I know that it's in the chat room. Hold on. Yes, there we go. kevinjjohnston.me/post/fatman. All of you can go there and make comments if you want. I put down the time of the day in 24-hour military time, because that's how my brain works, and what I ate and how many calories it has. And you'll notice that I'm just about done eating for the day. Wow. It's kind of harsh. Now, the first 2 days are easy. It's day 3 where all I want to do is eat bread, because I've done this before back in my boxing days. Let's see what happens for the next 30 days. And it's not because I'm trying to impress any ladies out there at all. I hate sleep apnea. It really sucks. So I'm dealing with it. See, I'm taking accountability for my actions and dealing with it. But folks, all of us are tired. We're all tired of the radical left, the radical LGBTQs, the radical left running our education systems right across the country, the radical left running the police departments and the court systems. I know. What have I had? 400, Ed, what's the number? 407 court appearances in 7 years? Yeah. So I can tell you this, there might be 10% of the police forces now across the country are conservative. It might be 0 judges. That is a real problem. And as a result, all of this filters down into, well, our kids' minds being poisoned with all of this crap. And it is crap. Now, we know why it's being done, but we're not going to divulge all of that now. We have an incredible guest on very shortly here. We're going to discuss this. There'll be fewer articles, fewer slides, less music tonight. This is going to be more conversational because our guest is quite the clever man, and like myself, has been able to get himself on the second page of the Toronto Star. So I figure we should just dive right into this. Barry Neufeld, everyone. Barry, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here tonight. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm happy to be here with you. Interesting how we met. My daughter was engaged to be married about 20 years ago, and she broke up with a guy, and I managed to track him down recently, and he's the one that introduced me to you. So I'm glad to be here.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you weren't talking about me. No. It wasn't me that broke her heart.
Oh, no. No, she wouldn't fall for you, Kevin.
Don't burned. Well, Barry, what do you do for a living? I know you're involved with education. Tell us about that.
Well, I was a publicly elected school trustee for over 30 years. The reason I kept getting reelected is that as a youth probation officer, I worked with at-risk kids, and I really understood them, and I really cared about them. And I had union backing. I had unions were donating to my election campaign, and I was considered somewhat left of center. So they kept reelecting me. But in 2017, my adult son told me he was all enamored with some guy named Dr. Jordan Peterson. I said, well, who the heck is that? Oh, he's some guy who was protesting against compelled pronouns. I said, what do you mean compelled pronouns? He said, oh, where, people choose, if they're a man and they choose to be a woman, they want to be called she or whatever. I thought, that is so weird. That'll never be an issue for me in Chilliwack. Well, that was 2017. Little did I know. And okay, I'll tell you how it all began. In August of 28th, 2017, I was going to go to a service of my church that honored the beheading of St. John the Baptist. It was in Langley. And a fellow trustee called me and she said, Barry, have you heard about this new SOGI 123 sex ed program? I said, no, what the heck is that? She says, well, I don't know either, but they're doing a parent information night at Brookswood Secondary in Langley. I said, oh, well, what time is it? She said 7:30. I said, well, I think I'm already going to Langley. Maybe I can make both meetings. So anyways, off I went. And at 6:30, I'm sitting in this church and they're singing dreary hymns about poor St. John the Baptist and how he got his head chopped off because he criticized the sexual behavior of the ruling classes. And it was all very grim and dull. And then I got a text message from my colleague. She says, Barry, the teachers union have found out about this parent information night and they've declared it a hate group and they've kicked us out. So we're going to meet in Murrayville Hall. I said, what? Murrayville Hall? Well, that's right next door to where I am. So anyways, at 7:30, I wandered over there and there was, maybe half a dozen LGBT protesters and about 12 cops. And I went into the room and I recognized most of the people in the room. They were street workers. They were who worked with drug addicts and hookers and whatnot. And there was three main speakers. One was Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson. She was a feisty little Pentecostal revival evangelist.
We know her very well here. We love her.
And I couldn't believe what she was telling me. I didn't even know that the SOGI 1-2 thing was already in the schools. And she said it had been in place as a pilot program for over a year. And I knew nothing about it. I was elected a trustee. At that time, I had been on the board for 25 years. And then there was a soft-spoken pastor, Paul Dirks, who had given testimony for Bill C-16 in Ottawa, and he had done a lot of research on transgender. And I just came out of that meeting totally shaken. I thought, what on earth am I a part of? I'm a part of an educational system that's pushing this crazy ideology that you can be born a boy born in a girl's body or vice versa. And this is just total crap. And I struggled with it all during the month of September and did a lot of research. In early October, our board met with our two members of the provincial legislature. And the reason for our meeting was that our schools were crowded. And we needed them to build us more elementary schools. And so that was the main topic of discussion. And then at the end of the breakfast meeting, they said, well, any other issues? And I said, well, yeah, I heard that the Ministry of Education is pushing this new SOGI 1-2-3 program, and it was developed by a bunch of activists with no input from medical professionals or parents. And I don't want to be part of a system that promotes this nonsense, and I think I'm going to resign. Well, the other trustees, except for my colleague Heather, didn't have a clue what I was talking about because this had all been implemented behind closed doors. And the superintendent knew because the Minister of Education had called all the superintendents into Victoria and said, we've got this new trendy progressive program. We want you to implement it with as little fanfare as possible because it could get the right-wing parents a bit concerned. She knew it had been around for a year. So anyways, they left the room, and before they left, my own member of the Provincial Legislative Assembly, Laurie Thronis, pulled me aside and he said, Barry, you can't resign. You got to fight this. He was the only member of the Victoria Legislature who had not voted in favor of implementing this SOGI 1-2-3 thing. And, well, I found myself on a journey. That was October the 13th. October the 27th, I published an article on Facebook and where I compared transitioning children to another gender with child abuse, and all hell broke loose. I couldn't believe it.
That might be what got you in the Toronto Star. See, that's where I believe I might have heard your name the first time.
I was in the Toronto Star. I was in the Seattle Intelligencer. I was in the National Post. You name it. Everybody was against me except for one article in the National Post. Barbara Kay wrote a nice article about me saying that as a trustee, I was protected in law by free speech. Well, little did she know. Anyways, they just kept hammering away against me. And the president of the union said that I was a homophobe and a transphobe and I should not be around children. So the Teachers Federation took me to the Human Rights Tribunal, and they want to fine me $50,000 for being a danger to their staff.
Did they say how you are a danger? Or did they just say danger?
And after 5.5 years, they haven't come up with the name of any particular staff who can prove that I'm a danger to them. But it's still sitting there on the books at the BC Human Rights Tribunal. The Support Workers Union, Canadian Union of Public Employees, also laid a complaint against me that I was a danger to their workers. Once again, they can't come up with the name of any worker who will come forward and say that Barry Neufeld is a threat to me.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to have any particular detailed description of how Barry Neufeld is a danger to them in absolutely any way. It's a blanket statement that they make. This is the entire left wing makes blanket statements that have no grounding in reality. They can't back them up. And it's horrible that they've put you through it, but I'm glad you stuck it out to fight it. By the way, I just want to let everybody know that in Alberta here, there is a pizza shop called Paul's Pizza. It's in Airdrie, which is just one town north of Calgary. If you go to their website, which is pauls.pizza, go to their Twitter page. They are completely on our side, Barry. Like everything that you and I are talking about, they agree with us, and they just pound the left wing something fierce, and their pizza sales as a result are through the roof. I called them asking them to get back to me. And Paul's Pizza, if you're watching, thank you for calling. You called. I'm going to call you right after the show, because we said we love what you do so much that we want to give you free advertising. So there we go. Thanks, Paul's Pizza, if you're watching. I appreciate that. Barry, please continue.
You know, Alberta is close to my heart. I was born in Edmonton. And for most of my middle school and high school, I was not far from Airdrie. I was in a little village called Cremona, northwest of Calgary. And next time I go out to Alberta, I'm definitely going to stop in Airdrie at Paul's Pizza and have one of their pizzas.
I've seen their pizzas. It's about this much dough and about that much topping. It's actually almost a 2-inch thick pizza full of toppings.
Oh, great.
They're phenomenal. So Paul's.pizza, go to their Twitter account and see the way a Canadian business should actually be tweeting. Ed, what's up?
When I was visiting, you didn't take me there. Are you kidding?
No, I took you out for wings instead. We offered you pizza and wings. You chose wings.
Yeah, no, I knew it was going to be like Paul's Pizza.
Well, next time, I promise. Just jump. You own an airplane. Fly out here. Uh-oh, I think we lost Barry. Barry, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there we go. All right. So, Barry, with you now having been begged to stay on by one individual to fight SOGI, and for those who don't remember, that's the long form there, sexual orientation and gender identity. So this is where they want to convince grade 3 students that boys are girls and girls are boys. There's more than 2 genders. They are trying to manipulate everyone's mind to get them to associate gender with being the clinical term, whereas sex is the clinical term. It's a complete bastardization of language. And I recommend everyone read 1984, the book, to understand what doublespeak is, doublethink, and using opposite terminology to really just screw with society. So what was the next step after that for you, Barry?
Well, because I was considered a danger to children, my cowardly school board caved in, and they made a ruling that I was not allowed to set foot in any public schools. Well, I'm a publicly elected school trustee, and you have to know what's going on in the schools to do your job. But nevertheless, they implemented that. Now, I had been accused of following junk science. I quoted the American College of Pediatricians, who said that transitioning a child is child abuse. And so I wanted to get all the latest research on this. And I was invited by the Worldwide Congress on Child and Adolescent Psychiatry to come to their World Congress, which was held in Prague, Czech Republic. Not everybody can go. You have to be invited. As a probation officer, I had a lot of interaction with child psychiatry. So I qualified, and so off I went. And it was a week-long conference, and I went to every workshop on homosexuality, queer sex, queer theory, and transgenderism. And of course, the Western European and the North American therapists were all enthused about this idea that they could transition children. But what was interesting, they all complained that the African and Asian delegates would have nothing to do with it. The Africans in particular were particularly incensed. They wanted nothing to do with this LGBTQ nonsense. And so anyways, I went over to talk to some of them. They were wearing their traditional garb, but most of them were graduates from either Oxford or Cambridge. I told them I was from Canada. They said, "You tell your prime minister to keep his damn money for abortions in Canada. We don't need money for abortions and birth control. We need medicine. We need antibiotics. We need simple drugs to help our people. And all he will give us is money for abortions and pushing his gay agenda. We don't want it in Africa." Well, anyways, I came back to Canada, submitted my travel expenses. I had over $6,000 in my professional development account. I submitted a bill for $4,000 and they turned me down. They said I went too far from home.
What?
I should stay home and go to conferences in Vancouver where they push this gay ideology all the time.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, Barry, just so you understand. We've got a member of our crew here. His name is Rio. He is as gay as they come. In fact, he refers to himself as the flamingest flamer in Alberta, and he cannot stand this stuff. He has been ardently against it. He's actually been banned from almost all the gay clubs in Alberta because he will not agree with their ideology and their stupid ideas. So, you know, and also we have a real transgender woman now, I suppose. She is 60, had the complete surgery done 2.5 years ago, and is also dead set against this. I suppose maybe that's our security blanket that lets us have these conversations, right? So
Yeah.
You're not alone in hating this. Just, I want you to understand that. And the entire team here, we despise all of this. Everyone watching, with the exception of CSIS, they watch the show for some reason. We all hate this stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Actually, every police department in the country watches this show. They're always looking for treasonous statements, sedition, uttering threats, intimidation. Yeah, you should see the disclosure that's been given to me about what the RCMP is looking for. Nonetheless, Barry, I want to get on track here with, you're against it. They hate you for it. The school board hates you for it. Can I ask this? Why does the school board hate you and at the same time love this ideology so much? Please go ahead.
You know, like I said, when I first spoke out against it, my fellow colleagues didn't know what I was talking about, but they quickly learned that if they agreed with me, they'd be in trouble. They would be attacked by these radical transgender activists, and they were cowards. They didn't have the nerve to stand up for truth. You know, all my life, I've spoken out for at-risk kids and tried to protect them from victimization. And one of the things that I picked out right away was that one of the mantras of these SOGI training sessions is that kids say, "I knew I was born in the wrong body, and I knew I was born this way." Well, I had heard that line so many times working with sex offenders, they would say, I can't help it. I was born this way. I'm only attracted to 5-year-old girls. I can't help it. Why are you sending me to jail for having sex with 5-year-old girls? Or in the case of, men who like boys, I'm only attracted to young boys. Why are you punishing me for being who I truly am?
They actually are asking you why they're going to jail.
Oh, yes. And, all of us are born with certain faults, and that is not who we truly are. We are all born to be covetous. We are all born with the tendency to steal, but we need to overcome that and to resist the urges to steal from other people and to respect personal property. That's how we grow as human beings, not by giving in to our lower nature, how we are born. And likewise with sexuality, there's a higher standard that we can aspire to, and not give in to our, as we say in my church, not giving in to our passions. The ancients understood very clearly, long before Christianity was ever established, that if we give in to our passions, it has an degrading effect on our intellect. We cannot think deep thoughts. We cannot solve deep intellectual problems if we are giving in to our lusts. And that's been totally turned on its head in the last 5 years.
I agree. I agree with that because go ahead.
The idea with SOGI is that if we accept kids for who they are, whether they're gay or non-binary or trans or whatever, that if they feel welcomed and accepted, they will perform better academically because they feel more connection. The opposite is true. Their academic performance is going down the toilet. All they can think about is what's going on between their legs, and they can't do arithmetic. They can't do English. They can't focus on anything. They're obsessed with sexuality, and we are raising a generation of total incompetence because all they can think about is their sexual orientation and their sexual identity, and they can't solve simple problems.
I don't think they're being taught simple problems. Look, Barry, I mean, I went through the school system. I think my first day of school would have been in 1975. I despised it.
Oh,
then.
That long ago?
Yeah, that long. Yeah, I'm a little older than you, I think. So but I remember being in the 70s and the 80s, and I hated school because it wasn't teaching me life skills that I thought that I needed. I was watching men in suits walking around with briefcases, making tons of money and driving amazing cars. And I wanted that. And I kept asking, how are fractions going to get me a really hot car? How's long division going to get me that super hot wife that dude has? Like, how? It didn't make any sense to me at all. I really wanted to get out of school. To me, school was prison. But at least they tried to give us some information to work with. Now I notice kids are getting nothing in the way of information. They talk about feelings and sexual identity. So maybe, could I ask you, what are the curriculums like right now? What do kids actually do in an 8-hour day? Go ahead.
The latest trend is student-centered learning. I was first exposed to that when I went back to university in 1996. I got my employer to pay for a life skills coaching certificate. And I must say it was the biggest waste of taxpayers' money, because instead of the professor getting up there and teaching us some facts and some research and some learning, it was a free-for-all. And we just had these talking circles and all the students shared their ignorant ideas. That was in university in 96. Now that's happening in public school. A person's lived experience is more important than any stuff they might get from a textbook, which is so suspect because it's full of colonial post-colonial nonsense, and anything that we learned in the past is suspect because that was developed in an age when we didn't respect Aboriginal learning.
Well, we don't tell the truth about it, though, Barry. I mean, I've said it on the show 1,000 times, is that when white man got here, natives had been killing each other for 10,000 years. This was a free-for-all. You know, reds killed reds, white killed red, reds killed whites. It was everybody was killing everybody. And long before any white man stepped foot out here, they were also scalping each other and raping each other and taking each other's food and each other's women and wives and teepees and weapons. They have been doing it forever. Yet what we teach now is it's just the white man. The white man destroyed natives. That's it. White man bad. And I'm tired of that. I think most of us are in its entirety. So they've lied to us about that. And now they're lying to our kids about gender and sex. So in an 8-hour day, what do kids do? They actually learn anything of value? Go ahead.
My fear is that they're not learning anything. For the last couple of years, I struggled. Should I continue to fight to try and save public education? Is it worth saving? Can it be saved? Because they're destroying kids' minds. They're destroying their respect for the historical lessons of our culture. They're destroying respect for the traditional family. Or should I be putting my efforts into private schools or to implementing charter schools? And frankly, Kevin, I'm at the verge now where I don't think that public education in Canada can be saved. I think it's totally gone down the toilet, and there's got to be alternatives. Right now in our community, there's a real homeschooling movement that networks of parents are getting together, and you know, it's hard for a family where two parents are working for one parent to stay home and homeschool the kids. But if they can find a part-time job, they can share homeschooling between 2 or 3 families. Mary can teach, all the kids can come over to Mary's home and she can teach them Monday and Tuesday. And then Sally can do Wednesday and Thursday. And Sharon can do Friday. And if necessary, they can have them all together on Saturday. It seems to me that that's the only way to pass our values on to the next generation.
And I agree.
One of the most devastating things of this gender ideology is that it's pitting kids against their parents. In Canada, we have just bought into this crap that a kid can change their gender and not tell their parents, and it can be kept a secret from their parents. That's got to stop because it's tearing families apart. And one kid can claim that they are transgender and start transitioning, and they can cause a storm, not only in their immediate family, but in their extended family, as the aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents line up on one side or the other of the argument. It's destroying the extended family as well as the nuclear family.
Yeah. Ed, you had a comment?
Oh, I got lots of comments, but okay, first one. You notice when you go to Tim Hortons, these kids are about 19, 20 years old. Your order is like $4.25. You give them $5 and you say, hang on, here's a quarter. You know they can't figure out that they owe you $1.
Yeah.
I kid you not, it happens all the time.
You know, we should test that theory. We should put some cameras on our heads and give them change and see what they do. You know?
It just blows my mind. So why, like, aren't they teaching them basic arithmetic anymore? Stefano says no. Barry?
Geography?
We're moving towards a cashless society, and so they don't know how to make change because they don't need to. They don't have any experience with it.
No, that's a fair statement, but they still should be taught that. But what about geography? That was a very important subject for our schools. We had to know all the state capitals and all the provincial and territorial capitals and every capital city of every country in the Western Hemisphere, just for reference. Do they do that?
I suppose some teachers do. The activist teachers would be spending more time into exploring your personal sexuality. And if a kid is stuck with that kind of a classroom, he'd miss out on learning the capitals of the world.
I suppose, and what we could say is, well, San Francisco is not the capital of California, but it's the capital of the LGBTQ movement. So if you want to get some, go there. I think that it sounds to me like that's what the lesson is. This is disgusting. Wow. Okay. So Barry, on top of your experience as a school board trustee, you also had experience as a probation officer. And you mentioned that you were dealing with sex offenders. Now, is there a similarity between the sex offenders that you were dealing with on probation and our modern educators?
You know, one of my prisoners that I had to deal with was a guy by the name of Robert Noyes. He was a principal who began to molest children, and rather than discipline him, when he got caught, they just moved him to another school district. And by the time he finally got arrested in Ashcroft, British Columbia, he had over 100 victims. And he did his time, and I think he's back out in the street somewhere in Montreal now. But once again, his excuse was that he was born this way, and he thought he was doing children a favor by introducing them to various kinds of sexual experience.
I'm sorry, he worded it that way? He said that to you?
Yeah.
What's he talking about?
Well, I was a prison guard at Vancouver Pretrial Center, and he was on remand there, and he was facing 58 charges of sexual assault.
Oh,
and he thought he was actually doing a good thing by introducing children to experience physical pleasure in their bodies.
Did he justify that?
Yeah. And that's exactly what they're doing with their sexuality education in schools. They're publishing books, cartoon pictures of boys on boys, girls on girls, dads on daughters, adults on children. And these are available in our public school libraries. And parents are trying to protest against them, and they're getting shut down and called domestic terrorists for objecting to the smut that's being published in our freely available to kids in grade 3 to 12.
Smut is the right word. It's vile. It's not even screed. It goes right past screed to smut. It's brutal. Sorry, Stefanos, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Oh, God. Maybe not much of a question, but more of a statement, such as, I remember when I was in grade 3, I believe. We're going way back. I'm an old... Actually, I'm older than all of you because I identify as the oldest man of the group. Whatever. That aside.
I'm only 39.
There you go.
You don't look a day over 37. Well done.
So I remember back then there was a court ruling that child pornography, there was a guy, I can't remember the name or anything, but you can research it and you can find it. They ended up making an excuse to get around in the court, saying that it was not child porn, that it was art. And they got around that for a while. And of course, the courts overturned it improperly. So what we're seeing now is something more full on. I don't understand why we do not have a bunch of parents or something together right now, bringing a constitutional challenge to what is going on for being government forced expression, freedom of thought. This is government force. This isn't of people. We're supposed to have freedom of religion. If this goes against your religion, there's constitutional implications. The most important thing is I was recently involved a few months ago in a case with a mother and their child at school, and the child feeling very uncomfortable of them trying to push this on them. The mother made a complaint. I represented the mother to the school. I put in an email, and I actually asked, is this part of the provincial curriculum, the school board curriculum? The principal would not respond no matter what an email, because they hate paper trails. So I recorded the phone call with the mother and the principal, and it ended up being the principal admitted that it's absolutely has nothing to do with the school curriculum, that it was those teachers pushing this on their own initiative. So and they resolved the situation by allowing the daughter to leave the classroom whenever they brought this stuff, and so she could go do her homework or whatever, or go sit in a library. But this is a real problem. And Barry, I see you made a comment about colonialism. You know what? I wasn't born in that time. I don't care what my ancestors done. And if you actually dig into the history with blacks and everything else, it was their own tribal chiefs that sold them into slavery to the monarchy. We have a big problem there, because right now you'll hear a lot of people give you false information that Canada is not under the monarchy. That's completely false. The monarchy owns Canada, period. This is why we have Crown Land Patent Grants. This is why Crown Land Patent Grants were given out during Queen Elizabeth. And I don't know if any have been under King Charles since he's so new, but any patents that are given out now under Crown Land will be under King Charles authority. This kind of stuff is proof that Canada is owned by the monarchy, and rightfully so. And when I say rightfully so, I mean by fact that is what is protecting us from owning property and having private property rights. Because when these patents are granted, it removes all right, title, and interest of the Crown from our properties. This is why it's called the Crown Land Patent Grant. They've been going on since the 1700s. If we lose the monarchy, this is the big implication, and this is why there's such a big push against it and to get rid of it. We will lose our private property rights, and we will also lose our constitutional rights, because the Constitution comes in under the monarchy. People, if you want a lot of information on Crown Land patents, just type in Ontario Landowners Association and go to their website. There's a wealth of information there and battles that we have been doing.
Yeah, and Steph, you've been fighting for a very long time. And if you have questions for Barry, anyone, go ahead. You can ask them in the Facebook chat, Rumble chat, and DLive chat. We are checking all the chat rooms tonight, looking for questions, but please put the word question in capital letters, followed by your question, and keep it on topic. I'll be ignoring questions that have nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. All right. So, you guys know how this works. Come on. So, Barry, now this principal you're talking about is just one of many teachers, I'm sure, or principals that have been molesting children. And you dealt with them in the prison system. You've told us now that they don't think they're doing anything wrong, or they actually think they're doing something right. So is there a screening process or a vetting process to keep maniacs like this away from kids? Go ahead.
Actually, no. Basic employment law and human rights law, you can't ask people about their previous problems that they've been involved with. And it's very difficult to remove a teacher. There's currently an educational assistant in the Central Okanagan School District that's causing a lot of concern, but it's almost impossible to fire the person because of employment legislation. I should say also that here in British Columbia, elected school trustees are, on paper, are given the authority to approve learning resources. And back in the day, when I was first elected, we did. The teachers would come to the board and say, I've got this new learning resources and how to teach math, will you approve it? And we had a special building where we had learning resources. Well, in this day and age of the internet, learning resources are everywhere. And the union has now got it into their contract that any teacher can use any learning resource in their classroom based upon their professional discretion. So we've now got teachers in grade 10 that are teaching kids how to perform anal sex and how to efficiently snort a line of coke. That's a learning resource that we have no power to stop or to prevent, because it's up to the professional discretion of that teacher to use this in the classroom.
Oh my God. Okay, we got a question here from El Leto. Is there a Montessori homeschool or charter school system in Canada? Is there an actual system of these, or are they just private?
I think they're basically mostly private, and it's an excellent program to stimulate children's creativity, but it's not isolated from this gender ideology framework either.
I was worried about that. Okay, Ed, go ahead. You got a comment because we have another question just came in. Go ahead. Microphone. Ed. How many times I got to say your name 3 times in a row? Come on. Ed.
I'm going to propose that all the SOGI 1, 2, 3 crap, it's a religion. And if you don't believe me, I want to play this video, and then let's get some comments on this one.
Okay, get the video done.
Definitely a religion, because they have an inquisition that deals with heretics, and they treat backsliders just like Jehovah's Witnesses treat their backsliders.
Listen to this
or
one.
Takemata would have punished you if you weren't going to convert to Catholicism.
Listen to this audio clip of a teacher talking to a Muslim student who decided not to show up to class because they were doing the,
Well, I'll tell you, you were out to lunch. If you think it's acceptable to not show up because you think there's some pride activities going on at school, right? Oh, that's fine. Because I'm going to show my opinion by hanging out at the mall. But meanwhile, all of those kids who are, involved in, say, the Gay Straight Alliance or whatever, I don't even know if we have that anymore in our school, they're here when we did Ramadan for Lion Time, and they're showing respect in the class for your religion, right, for your beliefs. It goes 2 ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you better give it back to people who are different from you. That's how it works. It's an exchange. And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, if they think you're gay, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that people can marry whomever they want. That is in the law. And if you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian. You don't belong here. And I mean it. I really mean it. And it's not a joke, Mansour. I said back and forth. You want it, you got to give it. It just makes me angry. Sorry, I'm a little worked up.
So it makes her angry. First off, I'll make a comment. It makes her angry. Who cares? Who the hell are you? Who is this person? Next, She decided to state that in Uganda they kill gays. Well, that's actually not the way that it works. But she neglected to mention that gays are systematically murdered in Arab countries that have Islam as the basis. She didn't mention any of that. And then she wants to say it's because someone was there for Ramadan that he has to be there for gay stuff. Well, first off, nobody has to be there for Ramadan who doesn't want to. No one has to be there for Easter who doesn't want to. And no one needs to show up for this LGBTQ garbage who doesn't want to. That's why I don't go to Pride Days. I can't stand them. They're not a party like they were 20 years ago. They are a political agenda. They're nonsense. Ed, what are your thoughts?
The point I'm trying to make is she's comparing the religion of LGBTQ and Satanism to Islamism. You got to take it or to be respected. She says that. So clearly this is a religious attitude, or it's a religious, they're pushing this religion of Satanism in our schools.
They are. Now, Barry, a question for you. As a school board trustee then, Barry, if a teacher is to speak like this to a student where she's blatantly making statements that are untrue, first off, and then she's trying to tell this kid he can't be Canadian because he doesn't want to join the LGBTQ cult. Can this teacher be punished, or is she encouraged to do this?
It's pretty hard to punish a teacher like that. It's embarrassing, but they're having free reign in our schools right now because of the legal structure that they've set up to protect public education teachers, and it's sad. I'm sorry. I wish we could get rid of teachers like that. Maybe some brave student will figure out how to push back against this eventually, but it will probably be at great personal cost.
I think it will, and I think I know what you're referring to, but we can't say it here. Here's something that I wanted to ask you, because this was brought to my attention in 2017 by a teacher who loved our show but hated the education system. She stated that if kids are not in school for a consistent time period, depending on the province, let's say between 10 and 21 days, that the school loses funding for that particular student. Is that actually true in British Columbia?
There are 2 dates when they count noses, and September the 30th, I think it's the last day in February. If a kid is not in school on that day, on September 30th, then the school will not get, in Chilliwack's situation, about $9,000. So parents are strategically pulling their kids out of school on these census days, so that they will hit the school district in the pocketbook and pull the kid out September the 30th. The school loses $8,000 in public funding. Kid goes back to school October the 1st, and they have to figure out how to educate them.
Well, they're not doing it anyway, so what's the difference? Go ahead, Ed. What's up?
Okay, this is great. Remember how parents or people stopped buying at Target?
Yes.
Target lost billions.
Yes.
Lloyd's of London said they're not going to play this game. They're not going with this. And 7 other major corporations, same thing. They're not going for it. Guys, if you got kids in the public school system, well, here's the way to fight back. This is voting with your tax dollar. Find out what those days are that the kids got to be in school. Pull them.
Actually, Barry, can you and I have a private conversation in, let's say, in the next couple of days, where you get me all of those dates? We'll find them for every province, and I'll just make Instagram videos telling people about that, because my Instagram account, for some reason, it's got like 5,000 new followers in the last 3.5 months. By the way, everybody, follow me on Instagram at Kevin J. Johnston, Instagram.com/Kevin J. Johnston. I would love to do that with you, Barry, because to interfere with these principles' income or that capacity for the school to run is something I would gladly do.
Yeah.
I'm in. count me in. So teachers can't be fired. Perverts just get moved to different schools. The perverts that actually come out and say that molesting children is good for them get to keep their job. What do we do? What could this is bizarre. What can we do beyond what we're suggesting here, keeping kids away on what do we do?
Well, the next major event is June the 9th, when a lot of parents across Canada are pulling their kids out of school. And I would encourage parents to participate in that event. They seem to think that the opposition to this sexualization is very minimal. But the reason the opposition is not very big is that a lot of parents are just not aware. They send their kids off to school trusting that the teachers will take good care of them. There used to be two very respected professions in Canada. We respected all school teachers. We respected all physicians. And unfortunately, those two professions have squandered their reputation, and we don't trust either of them now. There's a lot of teachers I would not want to babysit my grandchildren anymore because of their weird ideas. And physicians are so cowardly, they will not stand up and uphold a Hippocratic oath. They're quite willing to sacrifice kids on operating tables to mutilate them, and elderly people to bump them off, and teenage girls to chop off their private parts.
We've shown those photos on this show.
Yeah,
it's gross.
Kevin.
Yes.
So, a couple of things that I've picked up during the conversation here. Private schools, regardless if it's private school or the public school system, they still have a curriculum they have to follow. And if this is the kind of garbage they're pushing from SOGI, this SOGI garbage, that's something that comes from UNESCO, from the United Nations. That's what creates the education curriculum for Ontario. At least I don't know about the rest of the country. I imagine the same thing. But if you also look into UN AIDS, they are the ones that are also pushing this kind of garbage. During the last provincial election in Ontario, I was approached by a group that is attempting, and this group was out of Toronto, of course, that was attempting to try to get my view on incest on top of it. And this is something that was mentioned again. They sent me a huge email on what my position on incest is, and they want to decriminalize incest. The stuff that is going on right now is beyond belief. And now that recording that Ed played, it is up to the parents of these children to bring constitutional challenges. Forget going to boards, forget going to tribunals. They are about fairness, absolutely nothing about law. As a matter of fact, they were created and implemented in order to circumvent constitutional rights because they have no jurisdiction over them, nor do they have jurisdiction over law. This is about fairness and not law. Avoid tribunals and boards as much as possible. Constitutional action is the only way you're going to push against this, be it on religion, freedom of speech, freedom of thought expression, forced government thought. This is the big one, and this is what we're having right now. These psychopathic teachers are forcing thought on everybody else. So this is a big problem.
It's huge. Okay, Barry, I got a question here now. Let's go back to your experience in the prison system dealing with perverts and molesters and so on. At the beginning of the show, you indicated to us that they don't want to be held accountable for their actions. You've also indicated that they think they're doing the right thing, which is crazy. And now you've also said to us that the school board can't even ask those questions when they're hiring them. So there's no way to vet this. So I want to ask you this. When you're dealing with these sickos, is there anything that you can tell the audience here to help everybody identify them prior to even interacting with them, with your family involved with that interaction? Please go ahead.
Oh, that's a heavy question.
I had a feeling it was, but it's something I
You
really
know,
like to know.
there is an attraction to public education of people who want to help kids, but also attracted are people who want to manipulate and exploit kids. They're both equally attracted, and we need to find out a way to screen those people who only want to exploit kids. You know, back in the day of the residential schools, it was the Canadian government's idea that the way to bring Aboriginal people into the 19th century was to remove them from their Stone Age villages and put them in residential schools. And they meant well. But what they didn't realize was that these residential schools were way out in the middle of nowhere, harsh weather, and the only employees that would be interested in living in such an unpleasant environment were employees that were willing to exploit kids. And in the 1800s, I think the residential schools did a lot of good for the Aboriginal people. But it began to disintegrate after the year 1900. Well, what happened in 1900? Well, in 1907, Sigmund Freud began publishing The Interpretation of Dreams, where he convinced all the elites that little children lust after their parents and want to have sex with their daddies and mummies. And they thought this was normal. And that when kids came up with a story of being abused, it never really happened. It was actually wishful thinking. And this philosophy dominated counseling from the early 1900s to the 1950s, when they began to suddenly realize that Freud was full of BS and that these kids were actually reporting instances of abuse and they were actually being traumatized by it. And it took 50 years for people to realize that kids are not craving sexual attention from adults, that they're actually traumatized by it. But it ruined the first half of the 20th century.
That guy was huge into cocaine, and he also generated the theory that toddlers, they actually gain a great deal of sexual pleasure from holding their feces in. I don't know where he was getting this stuff from. Ed, go ahead.
It gets worse. Have you ever read any of the Kinsey reports?
I have not.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay, give us the rundown.
So basically, little kids are sodomized because they quiver. They think they're getting they equate that with having a orgasm, if you believe it. And then the guy goes and he says, "There's kids because they're getting erections in the womb, or so they claim, that they're already sexualized as babies." This is what these sick people do, and they promote this stuff, and the left grabs this stuff, and they run with this. And again, prove me wrong. This LGBTQ stuff is a Satanist religious indoctrination. Prove me wrong. I'm still waiting. Come on.
Oh, there's no way to prove you wrong, because they even admit it themselves. When they started using the symbology of Baal, the god that would kill kids and whatnot, we know that they're not even hiding this stuff anymore. I mean, they're not hiding anything anymore. They managed to get drag queens now into every school and every public library. And Barry, you'll love this one. When I criticized Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie about allowing this garbage to start with drag queens in public libraries, this is 3.5 years ago. I just simply said, Bonnie Crombie is disgusting and perverse, and she needs to keep perverts away from kids. Guess who showed up at my front door? Not once, not twice, but thrice, to tell me not to tweet about the mayor, and that was Peel Regional Police. I kept asking him on the doorstep, am I under arrest, guys? Well, no, but you shouldn't talk about the mayor. She doesn't like that. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. I know that, but thank you. Barry, it got so bad that the Peel Regional Police, of me tweeting about Bonnie Crombie and her perversions, Peel Regional Police sat outside my house for a couple of months in a row with a sound collection dish, holding it like that, pointing at my house to collect what was going on inside of my house. And to give you an idea of how arrogant they were about it, they actually said, "Hey, yo, Johnston, you take it black, right?" They actually pulled a coffee out of their car, and they bought me a coffee because they heard me talking about I like my coffee black inside my own house. Because I'm dead set against this type of perversion. So how far is the school board willing to go for against people like you and me and Chris Sky and so on who object to this vehemently?
Well, they tried to get me they've tried so many ways to get me fired. And a year ago, this guy, and I thought my only connection to him was that he was a failed candidate from 2018, but he took me to the Supreme Court and accused me of sitting in a meeting when I was in a conflict of interest. And the meeting was an in-camera meeting. I thought, how the hell did he know that I was what went on in this meeting? He's not a board member. It's supposed to be in camera. How did he find out about it? And so anyways, I get to court, and well, he didn't know anything about the meeting, but his witness was the chairman of the school board, and she had this big, long, tangled explanation of why Barry Neufeld shouldn't have been at this board meeting because he was in a conflict of interest. What the meeting was deciding was the CUPE union, Canadian Union of Public Employees, had sued both me and the school board for creating an unsafe work environment. And it had dragged on for 4 years, and they finally decided they wanted to settle. And they offered to settle for $10,000, and the school board go for re-education. And I was opposed to settling. And so when they got together to discuss this offer, I crashed the meeting. It was a Zoom meeting, but I got in. And I was opposed to settling with them. And they tried to kick me out, and I wouldn't leave. So in the end, they dickered back and forth, and they settled for $5,000 in a re-education program. And so this guy takes me to court. Well, I discovered that he was sleeping with one of our trustees. I didn't know they were boyfriend, girlfriend. So the only reason he became aware of this was because of pillow talk. I was able to prove that the chairman of the school board had lied in her affidavits. I don't know why she wasn't charged with perjury, but the judge ruled in my favor, but only gave me $10,000 damages. My lawyer spent probably $100,000 of his time trying to fight this, and all we got in return was 10 grand. But they will go to any extreme. They will lie. They will cheat. They will manipulate their friends into trying to maintain their the upper hand.
Well, we have noticed that they will lie, they will cheat, they will say anything, and then they'll use the media, to which you and I are victims of the media in this country, where like CBC, whenever they would talk about me, especially during the mayor race of Calgary back in 2021, racist mayoral candidate says this. It was always racist mayoral candidate Kevin J. Johnston. So they have the media on their side. Obviously, the courts and the police are on their side. I don't think every judge is, but I think that there are a lot that are on their side. And they all seem to have bought into this. Now, that's my next real question here is, has every teacher and member of the board of directors, have they all bought into this, or are they just afraid of losing their jobs for speaking out against it?
I must say there's a lot of good teachers who are just afraid of losing their jobs. They've got mortgages to pay, they got kids to put through school and university, and they just don't have the courage to stand up. I have one friend, Ronnie Herman, who was a school teacher in Vancouver, and her husband is a private businessman, and she finally couldn't take it anymore, and she quit, and she's been on the warpath, but they've suffered a lot financially. His business has nothing to do with gender ideology, has really been hit, and they've had to really tighten their belts financially. But she's a warrior, and she's hanging in there. I'm lucky in that the fact I'm so freaking old, I'm depending on a pension. I think it's safe. But after losing that case in the Supreme Court in Ottawa, I'm worried about Mr. Hansman coming after my assets. I don't have very many. I just live in a trailer park. I live in a mobile home. I understand that it's a little harder for him to throw a lien against a mobile home than a real piece of property. But yeah, I did what I thought was the right thing. And I don't care what the financial repercussions are. I am in this to protect kids. There are far more kids that are going to be screwed up by this gender ideology than are going to be helped. And I don't believe that gender dysphoric kids are going to be helped by a lie. There's no way you can be born a boy into a girl's body. That's a religious statement.
Yeah.
But according to my religion, the soul is genderless. We are given a gift by the Creator, a male body or a female body, and we do with that body what the best we can to make this world a better place. And when we die and go to heaven, our souls and our spirits will be non-binary, gender neutral, and we will all be on an equal basis, neither male nor female, neither Greek nor free, neither slave nor free.
Stefanos, if I may, I gotta ask you, I'm burning. Ideology has been mentioned so many times in tonight's show. Clearly, this is a religious thing. Why
Amen.
are we allowing them to push this satanic religious and all this ideology on the kids?
Well, Ed, again, that's going to fall onto the people. If the people sit back and do absolutely nothing, then we deserve nothing more than what we are getting. There's got to be constitutional challenges. Boards and stuff have no jurisdiction over a constitution. But when you sit on a board, a school board or whatever it may be, provincial government, whatever, and they are pushing something that goes against your religious or your freedom of thought expression, we need to bring constitutional challenges. One interesting thing that we just heard again, Barry mentioned CUPE. Well, we know CUPE is a communist union that is pushing communism in Canada. We had Barry Conway, I believe was the second vice president for CUPE. He was showing up with Antifa with a mask on until he attempted to grab and attack a woman and use physical violence against her. But the men stepped in, pulled his mask off, exposed who he was, and they gave him a few shots in the head. But Kevin, you should also know that, you've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. We were all at Mohawk College when Maxime Bernier with the PPC party was going to have an event there, and OPSU, the union there for the teachers and everything, OPSU was running around with CUPE, flying the communist flag, and you've seen all the violence that happened that night that occurred. We were all there together. We didn't know it. Like I said, I'd seen from my pictures after that you were there. I hide you in the background. But this is criminal acts that happened there, and I believe one of the Antifa communists ended up committing suicide over it because these people are so psychopathic, so devout to their cause that they committed suicide, saying that since Canada is not communist and they cannot have communism here, it was not worth living, and they killed themselves. So this is a major problem. People do not understand the gravity of what is going on in Canada right at this moment.
Well,
And
Stefanos, they also don't want to. Look, I've lost a lot of friends in the last 5-6 years over this. When I bring information like what you just mentioned, like what Barry's talking about tonight, I bring this to people's attention. They tell me, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that. That's not going to happen. That's what it sounds like to me. They really don't want to hear it because I'm interfering with their beer time or their hockey time or whatever other time that they've got. So you are correct, Canada. Unless you're going to do something, you deserve this. So you got to start doing something. So Barry, now we talked about the fact that people can pull their kids out on select dates of the year so schools lose their funding. What else can we, the people, do to bring down this tyrannical school board?
When I first began this, I felt like I was the only voice in Canada that could see that the emperor really didn't have any clothes. But I knew that I was standing for truth, and I knew I was standing for the right thing. I was amazed at how many religious people caved and said, "Oh, well, we got to be kind and loving to these transgender people," and they wouldn't do anything. But now there are literally dozens of organizations from coast to coast who are fighting this, and it's encouraging. When I was at the Supreme Court of Canada in last October, Tanya Goff from Action for Canada flew all the way out from Surrey and organized a rally in front of the Supreme Court building. And she had people there from pro-life. She had Mad Max Bernier, my good friend Shannon Boschy, who was a school trustee candidate in Ottawa. They all made speeches, and I could just sit back and finally enjoy my retirement. But I worry about these kids who are so needy and so screwed up and so helpless. And I don't want them to get sucked into this gender ideology thing and thinking that all they need to do is take puberty blockers and hormones and they'll be happy and content. It's going to mess them up. It's going to ruin them even further. So I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep hammering away.
Yeah, well, I want any kid out there who's watching this to understand that surgery is not the answer. A surgery I'll tell you about a great surgery I had. Okay, everyone, you all know that when I was running for mayor in 2018, the city of Mississauga, what happened? Antifa waited till I was on a ladder. They came running out, knocked the ladder down. I landed wrong and I ripped the ACL in my right knee. The surgery I got built a new ACL for me, and I did all the rehab that the surgeon told me to do, and I'm just fine. That's a good surgery. Walking is wonderful, but walking as a hypermasculine man is what I want to do. If let's just say I had any inkling whatsoever to be a woman, do it the easy way. Just put a dress on, put on some makeup, and go to a nightclub that specializes in that.
Oh, I don't want to imagine that.
Yeah, you don't. I did dress up as a woman for Halloween once, and I almost killed myself in high heel shoes, and I looked awful. But it would have to be private, everyone. What I'm trying to get at here is surgeries that improve your life are the ones to consider only when it's the last option. Surgeries to fix what's in here is the last thing that you want to do. Like that crazy woman in the United States that had her doctor blind her because she identified as a blind person. Well, now she's blind and can't live for herself. How about the ones out there who identify as paraplegics and they have friends of theirs take a sledgehammer to the middle of their spine so the lower half of their bodies don't work anymore? This is literally what's going on. So what's the difference between that and a surgery? And it's nothing. It's butchery.
Yeah.
Get the help if you have these feelings, everyone. Kids, adults who tell you to get surgery are perverts. They want to have sex with you. Don't let them do that. Instead, you spend time around people who love you. Get the help that you need from those that you love. This dysphoria thing, this idea that you're the opposite sex, not gender, but sex, it will pass in time. I wanted to be Batman in grade 1, everybody. I identified as Batman. And if you remember the Super Friends cartoon, Batman had a helicopter. Now, I would do this. I'd like in grade 1. And should I have been given a helicopter with a Batman logo on the side, everybody, and then been given the keys to fly it? Like, think about how crazy it is to give a grade 1 student a helicopter. Think how crazy it is to cut the breasts off of a 12-year-old girl. So please get the help that you need. It's up here. It's not down there. Oh man, this stuff bothers me, and I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy to be speaking to you about this, because I've always hated the education system, and I've hated it for my own reasons as a kid, and I hate it more now because I know what it is. It's just indoctrination. There's no education of any kind going on. But I have to go back to this experience you have with the prisons and the perverts, the convicted pedophiles and whatnot. Is there some way to stop them from tipping over? Is there some kind of a breaking point that a pedophile gets to where they say, okay, now I'm going to act on this? And is there a way for us to recognize it? Go ahead.
One of my specialties that came right after my involvement as a specialist in sex offenders was restorative justice. And it was the opportunity to get the victim and the offender to sit down in the same room, and for the offender to really understand how the victim was affected. And I had some success in offenders understanding how their stealing of the innocence and stealing of the invasion of the private space had such an impact upon their victims, and they began to realize that the short amount of pleasure that they obtained from this interaction was no way could be justified because of the pain that it brought to their victims. The one thing I'd also like to talk about is my experience in the Supreme Court of Canada, but I just throw that out there. If you want to ask any more questions about the prison experience, go ahead.
Well, yeah, we do want to talk about the Supreme Court of Canada, but was it successful when you had the molester and the child that was molested in the same room? Did that ever help the victim? I don't care about the perpetrator of the crime, but the victim, does it help?
I believe it did. They began to see their molester as a broken, screwed up human being who was only looking for love and connection. And they were able to get off their chest how deeply impacted they were and how they were violated. And they had an opportunity to put some closure to their experience. I certainly wouldn't recommend it in every situation, but it has been increasingly used as a tool in the therapy of sex offenders. Sometimes they don't meet with their actual victim, but they meet with groups of victims. And these groups of victims can explain to them what it's like to be the victim of a sexual assault.
So are the courts more or less lenient on them now when they go through the procedure of being convicted?
You know, I think over the years, I've seen the courts being more and more lenient with sex offenders. The other thing that I've noticed is that it used to be a real security problem what to do with sex offenders in the jail. You had to keep them in a separate living unit because, you know, they get beat up by the other prisoners. And now I see prisons integrating them and the other prisoners, the burglars, the bank robbers, the car thieves, they just sort of shrug their shoulders and are not as upset with child molesters as they used to be in the old days.
And that's unfortunate, because I'll tell you this, Barry, when our show was at part of its peak, they locked me up in that ridiculous prison in Milton at Maplehurst, it's called. And they locked me up there for 6.5 weeks, again, because we have a show like this. What I'll say is there was this propensity for anybody over the age of 40 in jail to hate these guys and actually throw fists. And I saw quite a few fists get thrown, but the younger guys didn't care. And it bothered me that there was such a disconnect between someone who's 30 and someone who's 40 in their reactions to a rapist, a child rapist especially, because one of them did show up, and he got his ass kicked thoroughly, but by guys that were over 40 years of age. Now, I can't sit there on my show and say that I condone violence, because Facebook will ban us and so on. But, should we as a society hate them and have disdain, or should we sympathize? I mean, I'm not one to sympathize with anybody that hurts a kid, but I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there's definitely a move to accept minor attracted persons, MAPS, and it's the new frontier of sexual minorities. We're accepting gays, we're accepting bisexuals, we're accepting transgenders, and the next category we're going to accept is people who get off and hanging out with kids. And I don't think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a horrible thing. And I like, we're softening up language. George Carlin always used to talk about softening up language. And now what they've done, instead of pedophile, now it's minor attracted person. And they get to talk about how proud they are of being that on TikTok and on Snapchat and other social media platforms, where they state that, like you said at the beginning, it's not my fault, I'm a minor attracted person, and they're smiling as they talk about it. And then they're actually talking about their fantasies on TikTok and not getting banned. But the people that tell them that they're pedophiles do get banned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all backwards. Stefanos, you had a comment. Go ahead.
Well, the North American Man-Boy Love Association is becoming more and more popular and stronger.
Oh, yeah, NAMBLA. I heard about them 25 years ago. I was absolutely repulsed. The North American Man-Boy Love Association. They've been lobbying the American government for 3 or 4 decades now to legalize pedophilia. These guys, just so everyone knows what NAMBLA does, everyone, they have protests where they have naked babies resting on their heads, and they're like deliberately rubbing their heads on the baby's genitals. This is what they do. And now it's becoming mainstream, and we're not allowed to criticize it because we have hate speech laws in Canada. It's ridiculous. Stefanos, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just this kind of stuff. I really don't care if you want to dress up as a unicorn or a trans or whatever. Remember, just do not push that on everyone else. That's your personal preference. Keep it indoors and private, and that's not for that. Kevin, if you remember a couple of months or so ago, there was an arrest. I think there was over 34 charges, child porn and pedophilia and everything else on a supposed transgender person, and that ended up, they use the name Trailer Park Trash. If you're going to be a performer, let's say, which this is the guise that all this is coming in under, why would you choose a name like Trailer Park Trash? That should be a red flag automatically for all parents. And you should be really ashamed of yourself for bringing children to these types of things. They're not child friendly. We just had in St. Catharines in Ontario here at Montebello Park, Rob Primo got some great footage of this, and they were saying it's child friendly. This is all sexually explicit stuff.
I know what you're talking about, where there was a drag queen who deliberately let his penis and testicles fall in quotation marks out of his underwear in front of kids in a public park. And the cops, of course, did nothing about that and criticized him for being critical of the drag queen. Yeah, that's how sick our country has become.
Guys, this falls right in line with today's public service announcement. June is Groomer Awareness Month. It's official.
Damn right. Yeah, we're going to be paying attention to that. Look, the Italians have done the right thing. This new president they have, she's phenomenal. She's gotten rid of. She will not go along with the United Nations and the World Economic Forum's Pride Month. She instead renamed June to Family Pride Month. So God bless Italy for that. This woman's incredible.
Okay, quickly, what does it mean to groom a child? And we're not talking about combing their hair, are we?
No, we're not. Okay, Barry, we're going to give you that one. Go ahead.
Okay. To groom a child is to make the child comfortable with blurring the boundaries. One of the main thing is to get them to question their sexual identity, if they're male or female, and then to interest them in feeling sexual pleasure. And these groomers, they know how to pleasure a human body. They know how to stimulate the genitalia to make a pleasurable experience. And so, although the child feels kind of violated and knows that this was weird and dirty, on the other hand, they feel very they enjoyed the experience, the orgasm. And then the groomer will take it to the next level, and they say, well, you have to keep this is our little secret. Don't tell anybody about it, because if you do, then they're going to know that you're gay, or that you had sex with an older person, and they'll be mad at you. So they secure the child's secrecy, and they get away with it. And once they've done it once, they just keep coming back and doing it over and over again until it's like a learned response. The child becomes addicted to this kind of sexual pleasure.
Yeah, that is horrible in absolutely every way. That's horrible. So June is Groomer Awareness. We're not going to call it Pride Month. And I guess the question really would be, why is it that a bizarre cult, a religion bent on perversion and destroying your child's future, why do they get a whole month when soldiers only get 1 day in Canada and 1 day in the United States? Soldiers who paid the ultimate price for their freedom to be perverts, they get a whole month. They've never.
Oh, it's more than a month. They're not talking about the Pride summer, Pride season.
It's a whole season now. Actually, there's someone released a calendar a little while ago, and there was something like 61 days of the calendar have something to do with sex. You know, Lesbian Appreciation Day, Gay Appreciation Day, Gay Parents Appreciation Day. There's all kinds of days all over the place. You know, it's out of control. It truly is. Oh, and now you said you were a school board trustee for 3 decades. At what? At what point was there a point that you could pinpoint the absolute change in the way the education system was running to bring in this LGBTQ stuff, or was it just a slow progression?
No, I will say there was a point. I think it was I was first elected in 92, and in about the year 2000, the Surrey School Board took a kindergarten teacher to task because he was introduced. His name was Chamberlain, and he was introducing books to his kids about children who came from homes with had 2 mommies or 2 daddies. In other words, children who came from gay and lesbian marriages. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And the Surrey School Board spent over $1.5 million trying to prove that these books were not suitable for children so young. And the Supreme Court, in all their wisdom, decided that this was a different kind of family and it wouldn't hurt kids to know that there are different kinds of families. Well, I was very disillusioned by that. And I began to withdraw emotionally and intellectually from my task as a school board trustee. I didn't let my stand be made known on anything. In 2008, I stepped down to go back to university and get my master's degree. So I was out for 3 years. In 2011, my school board were doing nothing but fighting all the time. And so a bunch of people encouraged me to run again. So I went back in 2011. And this was after I'd taken a master's degree in Christian education, and I was determined that I was going to make an impact. And the opportunity really didn't come up until 2017 when I first discovered this SOGI 123 thing. And I thought, this is a hill that I have to die on. By this time, I was totally dependent on my old age pension and my Canada pension. I felt that I was in a position where I could fight against this and I wouldn't lose my pension. I was not like younger people who could lose their job. When I was working as a probation officer, I worked for the Ministry of Children and Families. I would not have never been allowed to say anything like this, or I would have immediately been disciplined at work. So it was just an opportunity for me to speak up. And I have been speaking up ever since. It's taken a lot of wind out of my sails. It's aged me. It's cost me thousands of dollars. I've had to raise a lot of money for legal costs, but my supporters have been very generous. And I'm disappointed that I made it all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it was so stacked against me. Their minds were made up before I ever showed up in that building. They were determined that they were going to stick up for. They thought that transgender people have been discriminated against for so long, and they were going to right that wrong. Well, transgender people are not being discriminated against anymore. They are the most brutal and nasty and aggressive people that I've ever known. And they're not being discriminated against. They're discriminating against everybody else in the world.
Well, you are correct. They are violent. And I know I've been a victim of Antifa violence for quite some time. And, you know, they all call me the same thing: Islamophobic, homophobic, and of course, transphobic. And I don't think that the average left winger out there comprehends that nobody cares. You're gay. We don't care. We're going to live our lives and continue to go to work and continue to pay our bills and treat people well and go to church and do whatever else. We're not even going to think about you. But they somehow have to make sure that we know they're gay, we know they're trans, we know that they like this particular position in bed. We have to know this. We have to acknowledge it, and then we have to like it. So you're right, Barry. They are vile in every way. Ed, go ahead.
Bottom line, they're pushing this religion. Yeah. You've said ideology so many times tonight. They're pushing this religion in the public schools. I don't see that happening with Christianity. I don't see that happening with Islam. I don't see that happening with the Judeo faiths, Hindu faiths. I don't see Hindu religious ideology being pushed in the public schools. Now, take a look at this news clip.
Throw it up.
First reading, National Post. All schools must comply. Schools get heavy-handed against pride backlash. 2 provinces have now warned school boards that a failure to properly observe pride could be illegal. This
Okay,
is June 6th.
Barry, what could the ramifications be? Take that down, please, Ed. What could the ramifications be if schools don't like what laws would they be breaking, and what could the school boards do to these individual schools?
You know, I think it could be challenged, whatever they did. They're treading on thin ice here. This all went haywire when transgender was added to the Human Rights Code. And as I said, only one MLA in British Columbia spoke against it, and that was Laurie Thronis. And he said that this is going to be going beyond human rights. They're going to expect special treatment and entitlement. Well, he couldn't have been more true, more real. It's one thing to, and I respect their rights. If a guy wants to dress up like a woman and have surgeons chop around, whatever, that's his life. I'm not going to oppose that. And if he can do a good job as a salesman or an artist or a craftsman, whatever. But when we start confusing little children with this ideology, that's where I draw the line. And I've met too many kids who are struggling with their identity, and to add this new twist that, you know, you might be a boy wrapped in a girl's body, I mean, that just does nothing but mess kids up.
Well, it absolutely does. And let's be quite frank here, everybody. Girls have cooties until anywhere between grades 6 and 8, depending on, I guess, when you get your first pubic hairs. So the girls rule and boys drool. That's how girls see it up until about the same age. They don't care about this stuff. You know, look, grade 8, grade 9, even. I mean, I noticed girls in grade 9 because I was in high school and they were older than me. And okay, you notice, but I was still far more interested in playing street hockey right after school than I was wasting my time getting involved in the dating scene, period. So kids will get into sex in their own time. And even though a lot of us say, hey, the first time I got laid, I was 15, it's a lie. Most guys, it's over 20. It's just how it is. But that's their journey. Mm-hmm. We cannot be interfering with that journey. And those who are gay, sometimes gay folks don't even figure it out until they hit their 30s and 40s. And again, that's their journey. We should not be guiding anyone down anything. Sex education should be the raw facts. Here's where babies come from. Here's how you keep your genitals clean. Here's what happens if you don't. And here's what diseases you get if you don't wrap it up. And that's where really it should end. But they don't do it. They don't say any of that stuff. Like you said earlier, we've got teachers teaching kids about how to finger an anus properly and how great it feels to get a finger in your anus. That's what they're teaching in school. And how did it get there? Barry, how did we get there?
I don't know. They just kept pushing the envelope, and in Canada, nobody would stand up to them. At least there's some controversy in the States, but this whole idea of a child transitioning at school and the teachers are supposed to keep it secret from parents, that's causing a big uproar in the States. But in Canada, hardly any parents have protested against it. It just, they figure, oh, well, you know, I guess kids know what's best for them, and the teachers can keep that secret to themselves.
Oh, my
it's
God.
Not right.
Well, I can't believe any parent would even put up with that. I mean, back in the 70s, if you pulled that stunt, the parent would have showed up with brass knuckles and dealt with the teacher the right way. But Ed, what's your question?
Guys, I think we're missing the big point here. They've disguised their whole agenda, and it's a religious thing. You've said it so many times. Why are we giving preference to this religion and all of its satanic deviations and teachings and the mentality? And you guys have been dancing around this all night. It's a freaking religion. Why are we giving preferential treatment to this religion, this ideology? This is how we're going to beat them. Period.
We need a strong leader in place who's just going to remove all this stuff from the human rights codes and put out mass arrest warrants for every single pervert in the country.
But that's how they're disguising this, guys.
I know that. I'm just saying that it's going to take a strong individual to get in there and do it. It's going to have to be a strong man to do that. Now, how many strong men do we have left in Canada? I can think of maybe 10 or 11. There's three of them are on the screen right now. But, you saw what happened when I ran for office. Mississauga used Antifa to injure me to get me out of the mayor race. And then they locked me up for 7 weeks during the race in Calgary. Then 40 days afterwards, then $1.5 million settlement for AHS because I told the truth about there being no pandemic and so on. So, Barry, maybe I could get your thoughts here quickly on the whole COVID thing. Now, you indicated earlier in our private conversation that COVID was somehow tied into this. Could you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, a lot of people that supported me, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson and Tanya Gaw, they really got into the anti-vaccination, COVID is a myth thing, and I stayed away from that. But the more I began to realize what this is, there's an agenda. There are people in the world, Bill Gates being foremost, that believe there's too many human beings on the face of the earth and that the earth cannot support so many human beings. So we got to figure out how to lower the earth's population. And encouraging the gay lifestyle among teenagers, encouraging children to transition will certainly lower the birth rate, because even though gay couples can have children, it's complicated and expensive.
Yes. And
our Christian faith and the Muslim faith is based on the premise that God said God created humankind, male and female, and he said, be fruitful and multiply. Well, transgender and gay people can't be fruitful and multiply. So that's a way of lowering the birth rate. But the other thing is that this COVID thing, there have been so many vaccine injuries that they have swept under the carpet, and forcing people to take a vaccine that was rushed into development. And I don't know, maybe a lot of your supporters really think Donald Trump is a great guy, but you mustn't forget it was Donald Trump that pushed the vaccines at warp speed, and they broke all the rules about testing. They broke all the rules about ensuring safety before they distributed the vaccines. And it has ruined so many people, and if it hasn't killed them, it's made them sterile. So the connection is that it's a movement to slow the growth of the human race. And
I got to defend Donald Trump if I could, just briefly. In the contract that he wrote with these pharmaceutical companies, it wasn't mentioned just once, twice, 3 times. It was over 23 mentions that the vaccines must be safe. They must be tested properly. They have to have more benefit than harm. So as far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump did what he did with the best intentions, but the vaccine companies clearly broke all their contractual agreements, and I think they will be held accountable for this.
Yeah.
So do I blame Donald Trump? Not really. He did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that the pharmaceutical companies did not, now that opens a whole can of worms.
And the fact that the Biden administration is letting them cover it up, and the fact that the Trudeau and his government are allowing everyone to cover it up is it's, I guess, a sign of where we are headed. We have nothing but liars with the worst of intentions towards we the people in their hearts. And Barry, I'll say it this way. I have done quite a bit of studying into this, and it turns out that 1 trillion human beings is what this planet can support with the right socioeconomic structure in place. If you factor it in, everyone go to Google or go to DuckDuckGo Maps or go to any Waze.com, go to something maps, okay? Go to Los Angeles and look at the perimeter, the red line that it's going to draw around Los Angeles. Also look at Calgary. If you combine Calgary and Airdrie together, that landmass, every human being alive today can fit standing 2 feet apart inside of those two areas. Okay, so it's either LA or Calgary Airdrie combined. And look at how small Calgary is compared to the landmass of the earth. So if every human being alive today, which they say is 7.9 billion, I think it's closer to 6. But if we can all stand in one place, where's this overpopulation they keep talking about? And you know, Barry, you're going to love this one. All right. In Alberta here, everyone, the sun comes up at 5 a.m. right now and goes down at 10. So at midday, I'm actually wearing a sweater outside because it's cold in the sun. There was no clouds in the sky today. Where's this global warming they're talking about? Everything's a lie. We've been lied to about everything. So, Barry, we got to go in about 7 minutes here. I'm going to give you the floor and let you discuss anything you want to discuss. Please go ahead.
When I got to Ottawa, I was really looking forward to seeing the Supreme Court of Canada. We weren't able to go into the front doors. It had been closed to the public for almost 2 years. So we went around the back and found this little entrance. And I must say that the security to get into that building was more intense than any airport I ever went through. We went down these long, narrow hallways, and they gave us these very suffocating masks to wear. Even though I had flown all the way from Vancouver to Ottawa and didn't have to wear a mask, still had to wear it in the Supreme Court building. So I get in there, and they lied about so many things. There were 7 judges, and each had 2 court clerks. So there was 14 clerks. Nobody was sitting closer than 12 feet from each other. I had to make an application to be allowed in the courtroom, and I was approved. But my son, who came with me, he made an application. He was told that the courtroom was full. Well, it wasn't full. There was only 2 spectators in the building. The other one was the current president of the BC Teachers Federation. And everybody was very sanctimoniously wearing their mask. My lawyer had 1 hour to present my case. My opposition, they had 2 hours to present their case. And then there was no less than 12 interveners, and they each got 15 minutes. The interveners weren't physically present in the courtroom. They appeared by video. The chief judge, Judge Wagner, I could tell he wasn't even paying attention to any of the arguments. I think he was playing a video game on his laptop. So his mind was already made up. They had 12 interveners for the Teachers Federation. They completely denied any interveners on my behalf. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, who was going to go there and argue that I had a right to free speech. And they said, nope, not allowed. The most vocal judge was Judge Andromache Karak-Aksanis. I think she's a Greek woman. And she was as dumb as a bag of hammers. I found out later that she's never served as a judge anywhere and has very little experience in court. But the only reason she was appointed to the Supreme Court is that she's a political hack. There was a new judge, Judge Michelle Obonsawin, and she asked some really dumb questions as well. She's had about 5 years experience as a judge. And I'm thinking, where are these judges coming from? They have no experience. They have no wisdom. For 30 years, I was a probation officer. I was in a lot of courtrooms, and I found some really intelligent judges who had sat on a lot of cases, and I could really respect their judgments. But these 7 goofballs that were in the Supreme Court of Canada were totally useless. There was only one judge that seemed to have any common sense or any wisdom at all, and that was Justice Cote. She's the only one that was the longest appointed. She was appointed in 2014. Every other judge on that bench was appointed by Trudeau and his Liberals. And I was just so disappointed to realize that this is the highest court of the land. and they didn't care about the rule of law. They didn't care about truth. They didn't care about justice. All they wanted to do was be seen as woke. And their decision was based on the fact that transgender people have been discriminated against for so many years. And so it's time for us to make things right. And therefore, we support the SOGI 123 program because that helps transgender people. My contention all along is that SOGI 123 does not help transgender people. It doesn't help anybody. It makes life worse for everybody. But anyways, I lost. That's the end of my story. And that's what the other thing is, my lawyer was watching as the judges left the courtroom. And keep in mind that everybody in the room was 12 feet apart from everybody else. And he noticed two of them. As they left the courtroom, the door hadn't even slammed shut behind them, and they'd ripped off their masks. They couldn't wait to get those masks off their face so they could breathe some free, clean air.
All right, because they knew they were doing it just for show. It was all for show.
Yeah.
All of it was for show. Oh, man. Barry, if anybody has any questions for you, how do they reach you?
My email is simple to remember. OCOI.
Yes.
At TELUS.net.
I'm going to put that up on the screen. So if anybody has questions for Barry, please, there it is. Send them on in. And I ask everyone, be respectful, okay? So if you're Antifa types out there or the left-wing haters out there, tell you what, let's make a deal here. Don't send Barry any emails. Send me everything about genitalia and whatnot to me, because I love that stuff. And everybody who's serious about getting a real answer to a real question, you have my permission to send anything in to Barry. Yes, Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, Barry, thanks for coming on. It was a great show tonight. I'm sure we woke up a lot of people to what's going on. We got to keep doing this. If there's any updates, please, you're welcome back to the show anytime. And I got a little promo I got to do, Kevin.
Toss it up. Let me see it.
All right. So Never Again is now global. Christine Anderson, Bonfire, June 14th. Tickets are $25, or if you buy a VIP ticket holder for the event the following day, or I think it's Friday or Saturday. Get your tickets at trinityproductions.ca. And there's camping there. You can also, there's camping sites, cabins also available. Music, barbecue, bonfire, swimming.
Is this in Alberta?
No, this is in the Hamilton area.
Vineland, Ontario. That's part way from it's between Hamilton and Niagara Falls. I know where Vineland is. Yeah.
Now they're also having a dinner event June 16th, 6 p.m. in Hamilton. That is Friday night, not this Friday, next Friday.
The funny part about that, guys, is that Hamilton is Antifa left-wing crazy nut central in this country.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet about 100 Antifa show up to this one to protest. Yeah, you know what? Hey, let's get it. Let's really anger Antifa. Let's tell them that both Barry and me will be speaking that night. They'll lose their minds.
Well, actually, special guest appearance again, Christine Anderson.
Yes.
And it's Holocaust survivor Vera Sharav and guests for dinner and a dance. Pastor Henry Hildebrand will be speaking, Trish Wood, Eva Fry, Eddie Cornell from V4F, and Amanda Forbes. Get your tickets at trinityproductions.ca. And they're also sponsored by the Children's Health Defense Canada. And the following day, the premiere. Now, Viva Sharif, she directed this. She's also in this movie. Never Again is now. It's premiere screening. Hamilton, June 17, 2023, 11 a.m. in Hamilton. So Vera Sharif will be there.
By the way, Ed, are you going to be there?
I am going to try to get down to the campfire. I've got a big party Saturday night.
Okay, because there's a lot of girls out there, ladies, who say that Ed's so hot. They're going to want to meet you.
Oh God.
And is Christine Anderson single? Hint, hint, Kevin. I don't know, guys. Are you trying to set me up? Come on.
She wears a wedding band and she hasn't hit on me, so I think she is taken.
You
So
just have
Trinity
show your
Productions.
plane. You know, where most guys would show her a Lamborghini, you could show her your plane. Come on.
TrinityProductions.ca, guys, if you want to get tickets. Really good movie. I've seen some of her previous work. She's got a good message to send, and we're taking action, guys.
Wonderful. Ed, thanks for putting that up. Really appreciate that. Okay, pal. Ed, we'll see you in a week. Stefanos, did you have any closing statements or last questions for Barry?
No. The only thing is, parents, you got to bring constitutional challenges. Barry, I do believe your case was about defamation, and that's been something that's been held since you were a board representative. There's been several case laws. They say that government is not allowed to sue for defamation. Unfortunately, I think this is probably something that's more down a constitutional alley. When parents out there, SOGI is not anything good by any way, shape, or form. It's being pushed on us by UNAIDS. Research it. Bring constitutional challenges. Get your kids out of school, private and public. Homeschool. It's the only thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, pal. See you in a week. All right, Barry. So your last concluding statement to the general public.
Oh, Kevin, thank you for having me on this show. I want to say something that might get me into jail.
Uh-oh. Well, you heard it on the Kevin J. Johnston show first.
My case was pivotal in that it forced the Supreme Court of Canada to take a stand on gender ideology. And I have a very good friend who's in the ABCD case in British Columbia. If you don't know what that is, that was a father of an adolescent girl, and he objected to his daughter being put on testosterone, and he tried to stop it in court. He lost, and he kept complaining about it. They charged him with contempt of court, and he's currently in front of the appeal court of BC, and because he got 6 months jail for objecting to his daughter being transitioned into a boy. And they threw him in jail for 6 months. He got out an appeal, and his appeal was heard this past week, and the 3 appeal court judges are going to decide what happens to him. Now that it's legal to call Barry Neufeld names and keep him away from children, it's going to be very difficult for any parent in Canada to object when their children decide to transition. They're taking our kids away from us. They're mutilating them. They are sterilizing them. They're putting them on drugs that will change their bodies. And we can do nothing about it. This is the world we live in. And as Ed said, it's a religious cult, and it's an evil one. And it's worse than Jim Jones.
Oh, yeah. Well, Barry, this has been a pretty solemn conversation, but it had to be had. And I want to say thank you very much for sticking your neck out for people that you don't even know. It's good to know that we have at least one warrior in our school system fighting against this cult, this very, very dangerous and deadly violent cult. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight and for doing what you do.
Thank you, Kevin.
We'll see you soon. Thanks.
I hope to see you again.
Oh, that's a promise. That's a promise. Well, that is Barry Neufeld, everybody. What an amazing man. He has had a very, very, very difficult time over the last little while. I mean, yes, I have too. Chris Sky has, and so on. But we, along with Barry, feel that we are doing the right thing. We have to fight for our future. Like Barry says that the school board is done. Like the education's done in this country. I say the same thing. We have to completely and totally rip it apart. But that means we have to unify as one force, one strong force, and take the education system down. I mean, start with this, everybody. If you've got kids in any public school in this country, take them out now. Otherwise, you're going to regret it. It will be too late. Your kids are going to be screwed up, messed up forever. And eventually what will happen is they'll blame you. And that is a very, very real thing that could happen. I mean, if we've had people from the 70s and 80s growing up saying, hey, my parents cramped my style, and they're saying that now when parents were just being strict. Imagine how screwed up and how angry they're going to be in their 30s when you let them be part of this radical leftist LGBTQ cult. Oh my God, they might even kill you. And that is just the saddest thing going. And it's happening all over the US now, where transgendered or there's no such thing, supposed transgender people are attacking their parents with weapons because their parents will not capitulate to these ridiculous fantasy ideas. It's time for all of you to grow some balls, all right? Everyone's got to get a dose of the smarts here and understand that boldness, when the entire population is bold, works, and we can shut this down and bring a semblance of normalcy back to our country before we lose the entire country as well. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show that runs every single Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and 6 p.m. Pacific Time. You'll always find us live on freedomreport.ca, which goes directly to our Rumble channel. Always watch the show on Rumble because Zuckerberg is mental, and Facebook, we just never know when they're going to take us down. We will see you in a week at freedomreport.ca. I love you all, and good night.